they start to appear. So Amy, who is 5 years old, she showed up when I was 8. Um, I don't know if she showed up before that, but 8 is when I was very consciously aware that I was different. So I was having a problem with a friend, and her mother accused me of being a lesbian because I wanted to hold her hand. It's fine. So she said we couldn't be friends anymore. And I asked her what her conscience was telling her was the right thing to do. And she said, no, I don't. She's like, that's not a relevant question. And I said, no, that little voice, that voice in your head, the voice that tells you what's going on, what is the voice telling you? And she's like, what voice? What are you talking about? And I kept adamantly explaining to her about the voice in my head. And I think the more I talked about the voice, the worse it got. So when I was 8, I became the crazy chick who had I was 8 years old when I started becoming the weirdo with a voice in her head. So that was sucky. Was it after I experienced the trauma or only after some time? I don't know. The initial trauma has not been determined at this point because each part of me acts as, well, many of the parts inside of me act as an amnesic barrier that holds the memories of trauma or something to the effect, and that is a lot of work in progress to start kind of pushing those memories out. We have begun to hit the surface, but I can't tell you when the initial trauma was because I don't know. I can tell you when some of the other traumas occurred that I've begun to see, but I don't know when the initial trauma was. About that a little. When did I get diagnosed? I was in a long-term relationship for 3 years with a gentleman, and he and I split up, and everything started falling apart. I couldn't figure it out. I was depressed. I was overwhelmed. I had a cyst rupture in my body. My body was tired all the time. I was diagnosed with muscle pelvic spasm disorder, which is basically the way that most people held their tension in their shoulder, I hold it in my pelvis. And so when I would have tense days or stressful days, I would be unable to walk because I would be in so much pain. But I was sent by my gynecologist to see a specialist who initially thought I was schizophrenic. And then she sent me to my specialist who he has diagnosed me with DID. And it's actually very common for a person with dissociative identity disorder to be in the mental health, community for up to 7 years before they're diagnosed properly. So that's a fun one. Do you have 2 voices in your head? Do you have 2 voices in your head when you have an alter? When you have these alters? I have 52 voices. Each one sounds distinctly different in my head. They talk to each other. They have conversations. They argue. The twins, Joey and Kay, they fight like twins that are 7 years old. They bicker constantly. Yeah, it's, I constantly have multiple voices in my head. That's very normal for me on a daily basis. I just constantly have conversations happening that I have no control over. How long has your longest fugue state been? I would have to say 2 years. I think I've lost 2 years of my life. I mean, overall, if I add up all the time, I've probably lost about 5 to 6 years of my life, give or take. But I mean, as I've said, the fugue states can last in so many different ranges. I think the longest one I can have to date would be the 6-month long one I was telling you about, where I literally lost 6 months of school. I think I fugued out on I think collectively I've lost about 5 years, and I think my longest known fugue state would be 6 months. I'm pretty sure it's been longer than that, but I think I had breakthroughs where I would come back for like a week. Um, Maybe something like that, but uh, I don't even know. I don't even know. That one's really hard for me to answer because it's just so strange. And then somebody was asking about whether or not it was possible for somebody who had DID to have multiple lives, basically. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, it depends how intensely you're dissociated, but yeah, absolutely. I could see that happening. I could definitely see that happening. How well do you know all your alters, and what are the different aspects and qualities? What are their different aspects and qualities? So, I have to admit, I wouldn't I don't think I would know what to do if I didn't have my alters. They've been in part of my life for so long. I don't know what I'd do. Um I have very protective alters, and I've had some severely violent outbreaks as a child when there was a feeling that I was actually physically in danger. Um, I I've had alters really respond violently. It's a gut reaction. For example, Billy, he is 35 when he's outside and 10 when he's in, and I've told you that a few minutes ago. But so he literally sits. If this is gonna weird you out, I apologize, but and you're probably gonna have more questions after this video than you did before because now you're gonna want to know more. So Billy sits in a room in the apartment building that is dark, and he has a basically he has um I guess you would call it like a screen on the wall that's just got videos playing constantly of moments where he couldn't protect me. Either if he came out, I would have been in more danger because he would have outed me as different, or it would have been more trouble than it was worth for him to get violent. I was in a really hippie school at one point because I'd had such a bad experience in public school, and the hippie school was no better. It really messed me up. And I was in a class for biology, and my parents and I had made a deal because I basically gave them a whole PowerPoint on why I should be allowed to go to Catholic school. And because I didn't want to be in school with boys anymore, so I wanted to go to an all-girls school. And basically they said if I could pass this biology class, they would send me to this other school I wanted to go to. It felt like life or death. And I was in the middle of doing my the final exam, and there were 3 boys in the class that kept talking, like continuously talking. They weren't even doing their work, they were just chatting. And I knew I had to finish this test, and I knew I had to finish this test. And then they started throwing things across the room at each other. And when one of the things finally hit me in the face, I blacked out. I don't remember anything, but apparently, I was told this after by the principal because he was very confused. I began to scream out of control that they were intolerant little heathens, and I picked up a chair and threw it at them because they wouldn't let me take my test. So that was like that's kind of the like that's the end of the scale. Like those are my scales. Like I'm either like I have Amy, who is this 5-year-old little girl. She will sweet as pie. She wants to be friends with everyone. She's super chatty and adorable and fun, super outgoing and extremely naive, and I like to keep her that way. She is very, very untouched by the craziness of the world. I think she knows more than she lets us know, but she's just so kind-hearted about everybody. It doesn't matter. If you've done wrong to her, she'll forgive you. She's just an angel that way. But on the other end of the scale, we have Billy, who is so protective and Penny Lane too, the two of them. They'll get very violent if they think that I'm in trouble or in danger. Billy will get physically violent. Penny Lane will get verbally violent. And she'll get physically violent if she has to, but she's very, very adamant about what is right and what's wrong. And I think the most intense moment was she watched someone at the mall when we were working there. We were on our lunch break and we saw someone steal something. And I was having an off day and I couldn't control myself. And I fugued. And according to the security guards, I ran full speed at a gentleman who had taken a hat off of a mannequin and then walked away with it, and jumped on him, and then grabbed his shirt, pulled him back into the store, and sat him down in front of the store manager, who I knew, and told him to apologize and return the hat immediately. And that's Penny Lane. She does not tolerate people being unkind or unfair or wrong. But yeah, those are my scales and everything in between. And it's interesting. So that's all the questions I had that were asked. Continue to ask. As always, please continue to ask. Comment down below. If you have specific questions for certain alters, they will answer it in the next video. I will keep doing this segment of answering questions about my mental illness until you guys tell me to stop. I don't mind. Okay? So that has been this part, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will probably be a booktube tag because I'm exhausted. All right, I will see you guys soon. Bye.